So what's going on, guys? DIY Dan here again, and in this video I'm going to be replacing some of the bungee material on a couple of my kayaks. We've had these kayaks for several years now, and the bungee material for the storage just started losing its elasticity, so it was basically becoming useless, and we needed to replace it for that reason. Now I am doing these repairs on a kayak, however the concept's going to be the same for a paddleboard or anything else that's using the same type of bungee material. This repair should cost you less than 15 bucks and take less than a half an hour of your time. You can get this bungee material off of Amazon. The material I used I actually had left over from another project when redoing my wakeboard racks for my boat that I used to have. I believe the diameter of the material that was on the kayaks originally was 1/8 inch. The material I had left over from doing the wakeboard racks was 1/4 inch, and that did make it a little bit more problematic to get that 1/4 inch material through some of these fittings, but I was able to get it. If I had it to do over and actually had to buy material, I would do 3/16 because I think it would have slid right through the holes in some of these fittings without a problem, and it's a little bit more heavy duty, so hopefully it would last a little longer than what the 1/8 inch material did on these kayaks. If you are going to order up this bungee material, I recommend getting a lot of extra. When I took a look at these things, I thought each one would only take maybe 2 to 3 feet of bungee material, when all actuality it was closer to 4 to 5 feet for each one that I did. So the first part of this video is going to be the full replacement with new material on one of the storage compartments on one of my kayaks. And then towards the end of this video, there's going to be 2 temporary repairs that I did just to get me through the rest of the season because I ran out of new material. So let's get to it. I untied the knot that was originally in this bungee material and then just loosened up the 2 little plastic clips that were holding the bungee material to the kayak using a Phillips head screwdriver. You might be able to just feed the bungee material through the fittings without taking them off. Being as though I was going with a bigger bungee, I didn't want to have to fight that on the kayak. I pulled the original bungee material out of that plastic fitting and fed the new 1/4 inch material that I had through the opposite side of that plastic fitting that I pulled the old material out of. Then removed the old bungee material from the part of the lid that it was in, and once again fed my new material through the opposite side of the lid that I pulled the old material out of. I continued doing this process through the other part of the lid and the other plastic fitting. Now the reason I didn't remove the entire old bungee material out is because I didn't want to get confused on the direction that these went, and that's why I did them one by one. Right here you can see that I was struggling to get that thicker bungee material that I had through that last fitting because it was starting to fray out, but I was able to get it. And even though I did do them one by one, I still got this one backwards and I had to pull it out and put it through the other direction. Once feeding the bungee material through everything, then I went ahead and put those plastic pieces back in place and put the screws back in. Then I was able to check the length of the bungee material I needed by stretching it in place. Now I didn't have much left over because this was left over from another project, so I barely had enough material to replace the 2 bungees that I really wanted to do on 2 of my kayaks. So it made it a little bit more obnoxious to tie this knot. And I was never a Boy Scout, so what I ended up doing is tying an overhand knot over the one side of the bungee, then tying an overhand knot against the knot that I just made with the other end of the bungee. Then I used the 2 remaining ends sticking up to make one more overhand knot on top of both of those knots. Hopefully that makes sense, but I don't ever see this knot coming loose. Once getting that knot tied, then I went ahead and checked to make sure that I had a good amount of tension on that lid with the bungee material. Then I just used a lighter to melt the ends of that bungee material just a little bit so they wouldn't keep fraying out. So being as though I was using leftover bungee material I had and I didn't buy any for this project, I was only able to replace 2 of the 4 bungees on our kayaks. The front bungee on this kayak still had some elasticity, it was just a little loose, so all I did on this one was untie the knot that it had, tighten it up a little bit, and retie that knot, and I was able to still make use out of this bungee material. The front bungee on this kayak did not have any elasticity left to it whatsoever. However, one of the old bungees that I took off of the back to replace with the new did have a little bit more elasticity than this one did, so I just switched it out for now. These last 2 repairs I did on this bungee material are obviously just temporary. But they will get me through this season, and then I'll get some more new material coming and replace those in the off season. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video and gave you some good information. If so, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I'd really appreciate it. The whole concept of my channel is to give you guys the most information in the least amount of time as possible so I don't waste your time. And I hope to see you next time. Have a good one. Later.